Farmer discovers horse in pond every day. Vet's shocking revelation explains why. The morning sun peeked over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and gold. The quiet hum of farm life began to stir. Roosters crowed in the distance, cattle stretched lazily, and birds sang their morning melodies. For Eli, these sounds were the rhythm of his life, a constant comfort that made every day predictable and secure. But lately, the farm's serenity had been overshadowed by a troubling mystery. Eli's eyes fell on Silver, his majestic gray stallion, grazing lazily near the barn. He was a horse with a lively spirit, known for racing the wind across open fields and neighing in delight when Eli approached. But now, something about Silver seemed off. The routine Eli had come to cherish felt different. It began subtly, like a shadow creeping in unnoticed. One morning, as Eli completed his daily rounds, he noticed Silver missing from his usual spot. The thought of his horse wandering off didn't alarm him. Silver was known to explore the pastures. But when Eli found him, it wasn't in the fields or near the barn. Instead, the horse was standing eerily still in the shallow end of the old pond at the far edge of the property. "Silver, what are you doing there?" Eli called out, confused by the sight. The horse didn't react. He just stood there, knee-deep in the murky water, staring at the pond's surface as if entranced by something Eli couldn't see. Eli thought it was a one-time incident, a curious whim. Horses sometimes did strange things. But the next morning it happened again. And the morning after that. Every single day, without fail, Silver made his way to the pond. He didn't drink, didn't play, didn't move. He simply stood there, frozen in a trance, his reflection rippling in the water. Eli couldn't ignore it anymore. What started as curiosity turned into deep concern. Eli watched Silver closely, noting every change in his behavior. His once lively horse had grown quieter, almost withdrawn. He wasn't eating as much, and his coat, once sleek and shiny, began to lose its luster. The playful glint in Silver's eyes had dimmed, replaced by a distant, almost melancholic look. "Something's wrong," Eli muttered to himself, pacing near the barn. "This isn't normal." The pond, which had always been a quiet corner of the farm, now felt unsettling. Eli inspected it thoroughly, his boots sinking into the damp earth as he searched for clues. The water was clear, the surrounding area undisturbed. There were no signs of predators, no unusual plants, no hidden dangers. Still, every day Silver returned to that same spot. Neighbors began to notice Eli's unease. "Horses are strange creatures," one of them said, shrugging. "Maybe he just likes the water." But Eli wasn't convinced. This wasn't just a horse liking water. It was something deeper, something he couldn't explain. Eli tried leading Silver away, keeping him in the barn longer, even distracting him with treats. But no matter what he did, the horse always found his way back to the pond. One morning, standing on the pond's edge, Eli felt a pang of helplessness. He placed a hand on Silver's mane, his voice trembling with worry. "If only you could tell me, boy. What is it? What's out there that keeps calling you?" The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered. But one thing was certain, whatever was drawing Silver to that pond wasn't ordinary. And Eli was running out of time to figure it out. As the days passed, Eli's unease deepened. The once vibrant rhythm of his farm now felt suffocated by Silver's strange and unwavering obsession with the pond. It was as if the horse's world had narrowed, his every thought consumed by the still, murky water. Every morning, without fail, Silver trotted down the familiar path to the pond, his hooves clicking softly against the earth. No matter how far Eli tried to push him, no matter how many distractions he offered, extra grain, a new brush, even the company of the other horses, Silver's mind was set. The pond had become his refuge, his obsession. It wasn't just the daily visits that bothered Eli. It was the sheer stillness in Silver's behavior. The horse wasn't restless. He wasn't pacing or anxiously seeking something. He simply stood there, unmoving, staring into the water with an intensity that unnerved Eli. On the 5th day, Eli decided to follow Silver to the pond. He hid behind the barn, watching as the horse made his way to the water's edge. This time, Eli wasn't just concerned. He was determined to understand what was going on, even if it meant witnessing something unsettling. Silver paused at the same spot, his body seemingly frozen in place. Eli's heart pounded as he watched the horse's calm but unwavering gaze. Something about it felt unnatural. The air seemed to thicken, as though the pond itself held a secret, one that Silver understood and Eli could not. Eli's efforts to distract Silver grew more desperate with each passing day. He tried everything, taking the horse for longer rides, leading him into the open fields, even bringing him into the barn to keep him away from the pond. But Silver always found his way back. One afternoon, Eli watched from a distance as Silver walked past the other horses, his gaze fixed solely on the path to the pond. It was as if nothing else existed in the world. Eli's frustration mounted. He had tried everything he knew. He spoke to Silver with gentle words, trying to coax him into normal behavior. "Come on, boy. No need for the pond today," Eli murmured, leading the horse away. But Silver pulled back, his large brown eyes filled with an unspoken determination. It was as if the horse was saying, "I must go." The farmer knew he couldn't keep this up forever. Something had to change. Eli's eyes flickered toward the pond, and a sudden realization struck him. A feeling deep in his gut that told him the pond wasn't just a place. It was a part of this mystery, something that held a key. The thought of calling in a vet crossed Eli's mind, but part of him hesitated. He didn't want to believe that his horse's behavior was due to a physical ailment. He had spent years tending to Silver, knowing the horse's every quirk and need. This wasn't just an injury or a sickness. It was something far stranger. Still, Eli couldn't ignore the mounting sense of urgency. He had to know. If Silver's strange behavior was more than just a passing phase, if something was truly wrong, Eli couldn't wait any longer. One evening, unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, Eli made a decision. He would call Dr. Lila, the veterinarian he trusted above all others. Maybe she would see something he hadn't. Maybe she could help unlock the secret behind Silver's fixation with the pond. As Eli dialed her number, his hands trembled. He knew this wasn't just a strange habit. It was a silent cry for help from an animal he had always understood. There had to be a reason, something that made sense of it all. As the phone rang, Eli's mind raced with possibilities. Was Silver sick? Was he injured in a way Eli couldn't see? Or was it something far more mysterious? Something that no one could predict? The silence on the other end of the phone seemed to echo the unanswered questions swirling in Eli's mind. Time was running out, and Eli was ready to do whatever it took to uncover the truth. When Dr. Lila arrived on the farm the following afternoon, Eli was waiting anxiously by the barn. He led her to Silver, who stood quietly near the fence, his gaze already fixed on the distant pond. Dr. Lila, a seasoned vet with years of experience and a reputation for solving even the most baffling cases, studied Silver with a practiced eye. She petted the horse's mane and murmured soft words of reassurance, but Silver barely reacted. His usually expressive face was absent of emotion, his brown eyes dull and distant. Eli watched nervously, hoping Dr. Lila could find the cause of Silver's behavior. He couldn't bear the thought of losing his horse or watching him spiral into an unknown affliction. Dr. Lila pulled out a stethoscope and checked Silver's heartbeat and respiration. She gently prodded his sides, his limbs, searching for any sign of injury or illness. After a few minutes of quiet examination, she stood back, scratching her head. "He seems healthy," Dr. Lila said thoughtfully, her voice steady but unsure. "His vitals are normal, his coat's in good condition, and there's no obvious sign of injury. But his behavior, it's strange." Eli exhaled slowly. The relief of hearing Silver was physically fine was tempered by the growing realization that the mystery was far from over. "I've never seen him like this," Eli confessed, his voice tinged with frustration. "It's not just the pond. He's different." Dr. Lila nodded, her gaze following Silver as the horse began to move toward the water's edge. Well, we can't rule out anything until we've investigated further. I think we need to get a closer look at this pond. Eli agreed. The pond, the key to everything, was calling them both. The only question was why. Together, they made their way across the farm to the edge of the pond, Silver leading them as if on autopilot. As they approached the water's edge, the air grew heavier, the distant calls of birds becoming muffled, as if the pond itself was absorbing the world around it. Dr. Lila stood still for a moment, scanning the surroundings. The pond looked ordinary enough at first glance. Clear water, a few reeds swaying gently, and some mud lining the banks. Yet there was something about the place that felt off. Something almost too calm, too still, as though the land itself was hiding a secret. Eli felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up as he stood beside the vet. There was no denying the palpable tension in the air. The pond seemed to draw them in, and Silver, as always, was fixated. Dr. Lila knelt down to inspect the muddy edges of the pond, her fingers brushing through the soft earth. She looked up at Eli, her face unreadable. "I'm not sure what I'm looking for here," she admitted, her brow furrowing. "But this doesn't feel like a simple habit or sickness. There's something more." Silver stood quietly beside them, his head lowered, his gaze never leaving the water. It was then that Dr. Lila noticed something unusual. A faint outline in the mud near the pond's edge, partially hidden beneath the water's surface. "I think I found something," she said, her voice suddenly filled with a sense of urgency. Eli and Dr. Lila crouched beside the pond, the water lapping gently at their boots. The outline in the mud was faint, but it was enough to catch their attention. With Dr. Lila's help, Eli used a stick to dig carefully around the edges, and soon, a small, weathered object emerged from the mud. A broken, rusted piece of metal. "What is it?" Eli asked, his voice laced with confusion. Dr. Lila examined the object closely. "It looks like an old, rusted gate latch or part of a fence. But why would it be here?" Eli's heart raced. He bent down to take a closer look, his mind whirring. The pond had always been quiet, peaceful, a part of the farm he had long ago forgotten. But this discovery changed everything. This wasn't just an ordinary pond. As Dr. Lila continued to inspect the broken piece, Eli suddenly had a thought that sent a chill down his spine. What if there's something beneath this water? Something buried here? Dr. Lila's eyes widened as she stood up. A buried structure? That's a possibility. But it's more than just strange. It's dangerous. We need to dig deeper. Eli nodded, his mind racing. Whatever lay beneath the surface of the pond had been hidden for years. But it was no coincidence that Silver, with his natural instincts, had found it. Whatever this something was, it was calling to him. They couldn't wait any longer. They had to uncover the truth. Dr. Lila stood still, her hands clasped tightly as she examined the rusted piece of metal they had uncovered. The object, half buried in the mud, seemed to hold a story, one that had been buried in the depths of the pond for far too long. It wasn't just a random relic. It was an artifact with purpose, an object that had been hidden intentionally, kept away from the light of day. After a few moments of careful inspection, Dr. Lila turned to Eli, her face pale and her brow furrowed in disbelief. "Eli, this isn't just a forgotten piece of farm equipment," she said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "This looks like part of an old fence or a trap, something that could have been used to keep an animal contained. But why would it be here?" Eli's heart raced as the weight of her words sank in. His mind raced, piecing together fragments of the puzzle that seemed to be coming into focus. Silver's obsessive behavior, the unexplained pull toward the pond. Was it possible that the horse was trying to uncover something that had been buried for years? Something that he, perhaps, had instinctively known was hidden beneath the surface? Dr. Lila knelt by the edge of the pond, her fingers tracing the outline of the rusted metal. The water reflected the light of the setting sun, casting an eerie glow over the scene. It felt like they were standing on the edge of a discovery that could change everything. "There's something more here, Eli," Dr. Lila continued, her voice filled with a sense of urgency. "We need to dig deeper." Whatever this is, it's tied to Silver's behavior. Eli nodded, his mind racing with questions. Could the pond hold secrets of the past? Something that connected the horse to the land, to the farm, in ways he couldn't yet understand? Silver, it seemed, had always been drawn to this spot. But why? Was there something buried here that the horse knew? Something lost to time, but not forgotten by instinct? With a sense of determination, they both set to work, clearing more of the mud and debris. They dug carefully, uncovering more pieces of rusted metal, broken wood, and fragments of something that resembled a barrier. The more they unearthed, the clearer it became that this wasn't just a forgotten fence or trap. There was something deeper at play here, something far older, far more important than either of them had realized. As they continued digging, Eli felt the air shift around them. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the silence became. The pond, which had once seemed peaceful and serene, now felt like a place of hidden turmoil. Every shovel of dirt they pulled away seemed to reveal more secrets. Secrets that had been waiting for the right moment to surface. Dr. Lila wiped the sweat from her brow, her eyes wide as she pulled another object from the earth. A large, broken chain, tangled in the mud. It was old, its once sturdy links now corroded and fragile. This isn't just a fence, she said, her voice barely a whisper. This is part of something else. A prison, perhaps? A cage? Eli's stomach sank as the realization hit him. Could the pond have once been the site of a confinement? A place where something or someone had been trapped? Could Silver have somehow sensed this presence? Felt the history of this place buried beneath the water? Was this why he had become so fixated? The pieces were starting to fit together, but the puzzle was far from complete. Dr. Lila stood up, dusting off her hands, and turned to Eli, her face pale. I think we need to investigate further, she said, her voice now firm with purpose. We need to know what happened here, Eli. This is no longer just about Silver. It's about uncovering the truth of what's buried beneath this pond. There's a reason he's drawn to it. Eli stood in stunned silence, staring at the rusted metal and broken chain that lay in the dirt before him. The air around them seemed to hum with an unsettling energy, as if the land itself was whispering secrets to them. Silver, the horse who had always been so steady, so dependable, had led them to this moment. And now, Eli knew, they had no choice but to uncover the truth. The pond was no longer just a part of the farm. It was a doorway to something much bigger, a revelation that could change everything. As Eli stood by the pond, the weight of everything they had uncovered pressed down on him. The pieces of rusted metal, the broken chains, and the fragments of history, they weren't just relics of the past. They were a symbol of something far deeper, something connected to Silver, his horse, and perhaps to Eli himself. For the first time in years, Eli felt a deep pang in his chest as he thought about the life that had been lost here. The cage, the chains, the trapped memories that had lingered beneath the surface. He realized that this pond wasn't just an ordinary part of the farm. It was a place of pain, of confinement. It had been a prison once, and now it was calling Silver back, beckoning him to reveal the truth. Eli's mind flashed back to the countless times he had seen Silver head toward the pond, his steps urgent and purposeful. At first, Eli had thought it was just a strange habit, something the horse did to cool off or drink from the water. But now, in the quiet moments of reflection, Eli understood. Silver wasn't drawn to the pond by chance. He was searching for something. The horse's behavior wasn't just about instinct. It was a message. Silver had been leading them to the past, to the lost history of the land, to the buried truth that had been hidden for so long. And now, as Eli stood there, the full weight of the revelation hit him. He wasn't just a caretaker of the farm. He was the one who had been chosen to right the wrongs of the past, to heal the wounds that had been left behind. His chest tightened, and for a moment, Eli felt as though the world had come full circle. The farm, Silver, the pond, they were all part of something bigger than him. They were all connected by the same thread of history, and it was time for him to take action. Eli looked over at Dr. Lila, who stood a few paces away, her gaze still fixed on the water. She was waiting for him to decide what to do next. Without a word, Eli began to walk toward the barn, his heart filled with determination. The broken metal and chains could be repaired, but it wasn't just the land that needed healing. It was Silver, too. Eli knew that this wasn't just about uncovering the past. It was about restoring the bond between man and animal, about healing the trauma that had unknowingly been passed down. As he walked, he could feel Silver's presence behind him, following him with purpose. The horse knew what needed to be done, just as Eli did. There was no going back now. Eli gathered the tools he would need to clear the area around the pond, to ensure that nothing was left untouched. He would rebuild not just the land, but the memories and the connection that had been lost. He would make it right. Dr. Lila, seeing the resolve in Eli's eyes, stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone," she said softly. "We can work together to make this place whole again." Eli nodded, grateful for her support. This wasn't just about him and Silver. It was about healing the land and the animals that had been part of it for so long. As Eli and Dr. Lila worked side by side to clear the pond's edges and rebuild the structure, something remarkable began to happen. Silver, who had been so distant and aloof just days before, now stood close by, watching with a sense of calm determination. The horse's presence, once a source of confusion and worry, now brought a sense of peace. Silver seemed to know what they were doing, as if he understood that his efforts had led them here, to this very moment of healing. With each shovel of dirt they moved, with each broken piece of metal they uncovered, Eli could feel the bond between him and his horse grow stronger. Silver wasn't just a companion. He was a guide, a protector, and in this moment, Eli understood that their connection went beyond mere ownership. It was a partnership forged through shared purpose, through the drive to uncover the truth and restore what had been broken. As the final piece of the puzzle was uncovered, a hidden underground chamber, Eli and Silver stood together, side by side, looking at what lay before them. It was a relic of the past, an artifact of a time long gone. And yet, in that moment, it felt as though they had restored something that had been lost forever. Eli placed a hand on Silver's neck, feeling the warmth of the horse's skin beneath his palm. The bond they shared had been tested, had been stretched to its limits, but it had never broken. They had come through this journey together, and now they were stronger for it. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the farm, Eli knew that their lives would never be the same. The pond, once a place of mystery and discomfort, had become a symbol of healing, a place where the past was not only uncovered, but transformed. And together, Eli and Silver had become more than just man and horse. They had become a family, united in their shared purpose, their shared history, and their shared strength. As the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, Eli stood quietly beside the pond, his eyes reflecting the peace that had settled over the land. The air felt different now, lighter, as if the weight of years of unresolved tension had finally been lifted. He glanced at Silver, who stood loyally by his side, the bond between them unspoken but undeniable. The pond, once a source of mystery and worry, now seemed like a place of quiet reflection, a place where healing had begun. The once buried truth had been brought to the surface, not just for Eli, but for Silver as well. The trauma of the past had been acknowledged, and now the road to recovery was open. In that moment, Eli thought about everything they had been through, the strange behavior, the investigation, the buried relics, and the overwhelming desire to understand. He thought about how, despite the confusion, Silver had never given up. The horse had led him to the truth, and in return, Eli had given Silver his unwavering support and care. Together, they had faced the unknown and emerged stronger. It wasn't just about uncovering the past, Eli realized. It was about how you choose to heal from it, how you choose to move forward, and how you choose to support those who depend on you. Silver had known the pond held a secret. He had sensed it long before Eli did, and he had shown the way. In a world full of noise, Silver's quiet resilience had been a reminder that sometimes answers come not through force or frantic searching, but through patience, trust, and understanding. Eli's heart swelled with gratitude as he looked at his horse, understanding that what they had built together was more than just a partnership. It was a testament to the power of listening, of following instincts, and of supporting each other in times of uncertainty. As Eli gently patted Silver's neck, he turned to face the camera, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Sometimes we don't know why things happen the way they do. We don't always understand the challenges we face or the paths we are meant to take. But one thing is for certain, we are never alone. Whether it's the animals we care for or the people we love, there is always a bond, something that ties us together and helps us find our way through even the darkest times. If you've ever felt lost, or like something in your life doesn't make sense, remember, just like Silver, you may already have the answers inside you. Don't be afraid to trust the journey, to lean on those who care, and to listen to what's being quietly spoken to you. The truth is always waiting to be discovered. If you're on your own journey of healing or discovery, I invite you to share your story in the comments below. Let's support each other. Let's keep learning from each other. Eli paused for a moment, a gentle smile spreading across his face. And remember, sometimes, it's the quietest voices that have the most to teach us. As the camera slowly zoomed out, capturing the peaceful scene of Eli and Silver standing together by the pond, the soft sound of the wind rustling the trees was the only noise. The pond, once a place of confusion and unease, had been transformed into a symbol of resilience, healing, and the unwavering bond between man and animal. Eli and Silver had uncovered not just the hidden truths of the land, but the unspoken truths within themselves, truths about trust, about love, and about the strength to face the past and move forward into the future. The soft rustling of leaves, the quiet ripple of the water, and the sense of contentment that filled the air offered a perfect emotional closure to the journey they had shared. In the end, it wasn't just about the mystery they had solved. It was about the lessons they had learned together, and how those lessons would continue to shape their future. As the camera lingered for one last moment, it captured the bond between Eli and Silver, stronger than ever, unbroken by time or hardship. The story of their journey, their shared discovery, and their unwavering trust in each other would remain a powerful reminder to anyone who watched. Healing takes time, but with patience and love, it's always possible to overcome the past and step forward with hope.